easier with a strategic funding approval in as little as 1 day. For a free no-obligation quote, call 800-211-7805.
The following program is a paid presentation. The views and/or opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of KWAM. Welcome to the Variety Hour, where local leaders talk Memphis.
Listen to you move your mouth. I bet you come from way down south. Now don't tell me, let me guess, you from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis, you sound so good. Talk Memphis, high on the bluff. I swear I can't get enough. Listening to you talk that stuff. Talk Memphis, oh yeah, talk Memphis.
And now, get ready for a 1-hour radio show, jam-packed with the real facts about buying and selling homes in the Mid-South, with your host, the team leader for Keller Williams Realty, one of the nation's top real estate companies, Cindy Ward.
Hey, good morning, Memphis. Welcome to Home Buying and Selling, the show that will put your mind at ease if you're in the market today to buy or sell. I'm Cindy Ward with Keller Williams here in Memphis, and we're going to be here every Thursday morning for a full hour on The Voice at AM 990 and FM 107.9. We're going to tell you everything you need to know about home buying and selling in Memphis and all the surrounding communities. It doesn't matter if you're home, in your car, or already at work. Listen up, because if you're even thinking about buying or selling a home, this show will teach you some things and help you make smarter decisions. Real estate is very hot right now and will be for a long time. So people ask me, Cindy, why are you doing a radio show when it's already a hot market? Hey, it's simple. Because it is a hot market, and more people need more help today to understand what's really going on and how they can get the best deal, whether they're buying, selling, or investing. They need information they can trust, and they need to work with people they can trust. That's why we do this show. Rumors are still flying right now. Home prices are exploding. There's not much inventory to choose from. Buyer beware. It's a seller's market. And there may be some truth to all of that, but there's also a lot of confusing and conflicting information out there. Well, my guests and I each week are going to end that confusion. Speaking of guests, I'm so glad to have Charley Burch, a top realtor with Keller Williams Realty, here today. And we're going to really get into some detail about what's coming up in his world. We've got a lot of information to share, so get comfortable, turn up the volume, and we'll get this party started right after this break. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more home buying and selling with Cindy Ward on KWAM The Voice.
Now, here's Mid-South weather from News Channel 3's Severe Weather Center. Brought to you by the Crescent Club, hosting the people and ideas that moved Memphis forward for nearly 30 years. Poplar and I-240. Call for a free tour at 901-684-1010.
Our Code Orange health alert for elevated ozone will continue today. Mostly sunny with highs in the lower 90s and light southeasterly winds. Low 70s tonight, but low 90s heading into the weekend with minimal rain chances. Golf season's upon us. If you haven't been to Miramichi lately, you're missing out. It's a world-class public access golfing experience located in the Woodstock community, just minutes from downtown Memphis. I'm News Channel 3's Todd Demers on The Voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990.
Memphis area residential real estate is more confusing than ever. Rumors are everywhere. Home prices are exploding. There's no inventory to choose from. Buyer beware, it's a seller's market. There's some truth to just about everything, but most of it is based on inaccurate information, assumptions, and general confusion. Help is on the way. Answers are coming. Cindy Ward, Memphis team leader for Keller Williams Realty, one of the nation's top real estate companies, will bring the facts of today's residential real estate home to you on her new radio show. Cindy and her special guests will answer your questions, explain the facts of the Memphis area housing market, and talk with other top professionals in the real estate business. Learn why Cindy tells all her customers buying or selling, if you don't use a realtor, you're probably going to lose money. Listen every Thursday at home, at work, or in the car to Home Buying and Selling with Cindy at Keller Williams, and watch her on Facebook Live.
And now back to home buying and selling with Cindy Ward on KWAM The Voice.
Thanks for coming back. This is Cindy Ward, the team leader at Keller Williams Realty, and you're listening to Home Buying and Selling. And this morning we have Charley Burch here. Charley Burch is a lifelong Memphian. He's been involved in politics from an early age and has served as an appointed city government official in Memphis for 12 years. Charley, hey, tell us about what's going on in your world right now.
Well, good morning. Thank you again for having me on the show. As always, there's a lot going on. When everybody goes up, hey, Charley, what's going on? I go, a lot.
A lot.
But that's by my own choice and, in a way, my obligation, I feel, to the community. You
wear a lot of hats.
I do.
Right. So I'm looking at your website right now, and you're a federal transportation security officer for the Department of Homeland Security. Mm-hmm. That's really big.
It is.
Big stuff. And you are, let's see here. You've been elected vice chairman of the DHS TSA Employees Advisory Council.
Yeah, TSA has an advisory council. It was a 2.5-year term that I served on it. And basically it was for the employees of TSA at the airport about what their desires or contributions or grievances they would have. They bring it up to this action committee. So anytime I've ever had the opportunity to represent the people that I work with or Memphians as a whole, I've always taken it because that's public service, just something that's in my blood, but it's also a desire of mine.
And it speaks to your character for certain.
And I just have always tried to be a part of something larger than myself, and sometimes to my own dismay, and also sometimes to my own benefit. But,
right.
As long as it's helping people and helping Memphis, because I was born and raised here, 50 years living here in Memphis. And I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen changes for the good, and I've seen changes that weren't so good. And I don't think there's a silver bullet. I don't think we have to come up with like a new way to make Memphis better and like it was and what have you. I think we have had some great accomplishments. And those things that we did correctly in the past, I think we should just go back and start doing those again.
That makes perfect sense. So you became a realtor in...
About 4 years ago.
Right.
My mother, Wanda Burch, she was in real estate. She was an educator here in Memphis for 3 decades. And then she also had a real estate license on the side. And so I think she started off with Century 21 and Mr. Abe Kaplan, God rest his soul, back in the 70s, and that went to Cry-like, and then she ended up, I think, finally with Kaizen Realty, and she retired her license at 87 about 4 or 5 years ago. And so when she retired that license, it was like she was the oldest active licensed real estate agent in the state, if not West Tennessee. I think it was like the whole state. And like I think it was Miss Coleman, that she was practicing till she was 93 or whatever. You know
the old joke. Realtors never retire. They just become listless. Thank you for laughing.
I like that. No, that is good. And she has rental properties that she managed, whatever, and I help her with that. So, when she retired it, I was like, well, we're still dealing with real estate, and I might as well get my license, Yes. And so I did, and that's when you and I got to meet, and Harold Blockman, old lifelong friend of mine, and his sister with the music industry, which I've been a producer for the past 30 years here in Memphis, and there you have it. So I just have it. I encourage many and anybody to become a licensed real estate agent.
With Keller Williams Realty.
With Keller Williams Realty.
Absolutely,
because there's just no downside to it.
Exactly.
I mean, if someone only sold like 2 houses a year,
the national
you would
average,
just make money.
The national average is interesting. It's everyone knows at least 5 people per 12-month period that are wanting to buy, sell, or invest. Mm-hmm. So if each agent knows 5 people, and those 5 people know 5 people, there's 25 deals right there someone could have in 1 year.
Yes.
So, there's no reason not to.
And if you're lifelong Memphians like ourselves, I mean, I don't know if the statistic is still spot on, but I think it's like at least 3/4 of home buyers purchase a house within a 50-mile radius of where they were born and raised.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So
let's let that sink in for a second.
Right.
There's a lot of business here.
Sure. And, they're people that you've grown up around.
Right.
And that they have your trust. And the 2 biggest decisions that the most common or average American makes are purchasing a car and a house.
Absolutely.
And so there's something where they don't want to just...
And the house is every 5 to 7 years.
Right.
Right.
Right. So everybody go out and get a real estate license and join up with Keller Williams.
Get your license. Call Cindy Ward. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I appreciate that plug. I'm also looking on your website, and it says that you have produced Memphis music and records and promoted events for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, I ever since I was a little child, I grew up around entertainers in Memphis, but I never really thought that I would go into the music business, I guess, if you will. My family were deeply involved with the civil rights movement, and there were a lot of entertainers, international entertainers that came to Memphis to become part of the movement. And so I met a lot of entertainers at that young age. And then I got into theater in high school, and I was going off to study stage theater, and I was in the thespian troupes here and won state competitions with that. And then I got up and spent some time in New York and just saw how, quite honest, tough it was. You know, you got like 85,000 equity members just in the Triborough area going after 600 roles a year on Broadway.
I can imagine.
And I come back to Memphis, and some friends of mine and I were together. We noticed that there wasn't a music venue or a nightclub that was promoting alternative music at that time. This is like right on the cusp when grunge was about to be born.
Like early 90s, late 80s?
Late 80s,
okay.
Yeah. So like around 88, David Bowie forms this band called Tin Machine. And it's kind of considered to be the first like mainstream radio rotated alternative music act or grunge act. And then of course here comes Soundgarden and Nirvana, and that
Pearl
whole
Jam,
thing blows out right there, late 80s. And so we open a venue. I go down on Beale Street. There's Club Handy on Beale Street, and there's nothing going on in it. I go to Johnny Robinson, God rest his soul. He had Alfred's, and he owned a bunch of buildings on that street. And I just said, like, we want to open up this venue in there. And he's like, you don't have any money. You don't have any experience. He says, you're crazy. I said, I want you to stock it, staff it. I want 100% of the door and 20% of the bar, and you'll be over occupancy in 2 months. And he said, you got a lot of chutzpah, but I tell you what, you're on, kid. And we go in there, and my partners and I put that together, and we were over occupancy in 4 days.
Wow.
And then that went on to me being involved with 616 and then Crossroads Music Festival. And next door to our venue on Beale Street was Willie Mitchell's Club. And his daughters, Yvonne and Lorraine Mitchell, were running that. And so I was booking bands for the first time with Mike Glenn at the Daisy that was in between our two venues. And so I would hang out with the sisters and go over to Willie Mitchell's studio and just be like a studio rat, like hanging around, I just like being in the presence of the maestro. And then over the years that turned into like a decade and a half, I would like bring in artists there to record that I'd worked with on booking or, event production. And he'd give me bird dog fees. And then one day in the early 2000s, I brought in a band, they're tracking, and he said, where are you going, boy? And I said, I'm going across the street to the Sundry to get food and drinks for the band. He says, no, man, you producing an album today. And I go, no, you're the producer. You got over 400 gold and platinum records. And he says, you're a mediocre musician. You're a mediocre engineer, but you got great expletive ears. And you go produce that album, and I'll mix it down with you. And a few years later, that artist and I, we won the 2010 Traditional Blues Album of the Year. So, everything was like a setup, and then I just was into music and into specifically Memphis music and the preservation of it. So that, believe it or not, that's the abridged version.
That's awesome. What a great story. Okay, we'll be right back. Make sure that you tune back into us, Charlie and Cindy, KWAM 990.
We'll be right back with more home buying and selling with Cindy Ward on KWAM The Voice.
Before we go to break, I would like to talk to one of our trusted sponsors, Christy Stokes with Choice Home Warranty.
I'm glad to be here. We offer a warranty on mechanical systems throughout the home It differs from home insurance. This is for mechanical systems only. It can be used during the buying and selling process or just an individual home that you want to cover. Anyone who owns a house can use a home warranty. We have multi-year plans. So I have had Christmas gifts that they've been given as Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, housewarming gifts for somebody who just moves in.
Must you live in just the Memphis area to take advantage of this home warranty?
Absolutely not. We cover all states other than California, so we can set you up or your family up in any area. I have a team of people here that can help. Brad Sterling is my partner in crime here, and we are going to take over Memphis and take care of our people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for popping into the studio today to tell us about this great program. We are glad to be in business with you.
I'm glad to be a partner.
For more information, call Christy Stokes with Choice Home Warranty, 901-616-2285.
Keller Williams, the world's largest real estate franchise by agent count, announces its #1 in units and sales volume in the U.S. in Q4 17. The franchise broke previous agent production, owner profit, and profit share records set in Q4 16. Keller Williams has more than 930 offices and 177,000 associates. The franchise is #1 in units and sales volume in the U.S. and most transactions and highest dollar volume of all real estate companies in the world. In 2017, Training Magazine named Keller Williams the #1 training organization across all industries in the world. Since 1983, Keller Williams has grown exponentially and continues to cultivate an agent-centric, education-based, technology-driven culture that rewards agents as stakeholders. The company also provides specialized agents in luxury homes, commercial and farm and ranch properties. If you're wanting to begin your career as a professional realtor, or if you're already in the business and looking for a new home, contact Cindy Ward at Keller Williams today, 901-261-7900.
And now back to Home Buying and Selling with Cindy Ward on KWAM The Voice.
Thank you so much for coming back. This is Cindy Ward with Home Buying and Selling, and I'm here today with Charley Burch in the studio. Charley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you again for having me.
Oh my gosh, this is just wonderful. Your stories always amaze me. Every time we talk, we can talk for an hour without stopping, and that's why I ask you to be on the show, because you're so interesting, and I see what you're doing as far as taking your real estate experience, your love for Memphis, to the next step in your career. Tell everyone what you're doing.
Well, so yes, 30 years I've been producing events and records in Memphis, and about 6 or 7 years ago, when the contract negotiations failed with Delta Northwest and the city of Memphis, people stopped tracking records here in town. I mean, it was like the industry went down, and I needed something. You don't get health and dental in the studio.
Right.
And so I needed something solid right there. So I was thinking, I'm going to get a government job, and that way I'll have, federal health, life, insurance, dental. And my mother and I had been, dealing with rental properties, so I was going to get my real estate license also. And when she retired her license, carry on the tradition with that and take a more proactive role in real estate. So I did that. And since then, the music industry has really, really gone downhill. And I was on for 7.5 years, I was the vice chairman until its dissolvement in 2016 of the Memphis Music Commission. Mm-hmm. And so when the new administration came in, basically there was this agreement across the board that they were going to cut funding to music projects and the arts in Memphis because there are other priorities. And music is the #1 export of our city. Historically, I mean, when you just go back, it's the one that has.
The music is Memphis.
It is. Birthplace of blues and rock and roll. You got W.C. Handy in the early 1900s with St. Louis Blues and Yellow Dog Blues, which were the first 2 pieces of sheet music that were codified with the word blues in them. So that's what makes him really the godfather of blues. And in 1951, it wasn't the $1 Million Quartet. It was Ike Turner, 1951, Rocket 88 at Sam Studios, that no musicologist in the world will argue that's not the first rock and roll record. So with that legacy and all that brought here, that's why you see all these homes, from the 70s that were built and commissioned by the likes of Willie Mitchell and Isaac Hayes. And, there are these incredible, it was a boom town. And growing up in the 70s in Memphis, it was amazing. It really was. Some people talk about, like, bad childhoods they had. Like, I did not have one of those.
Tell us the story.
I had a great, I was born and raised in Higham Park, which is still an incredible neighborhood today. And then we had a house over in Whitehaven, right behind where the souvenir shops are, on Tranquil and Bluebird Lane. And so we got to go up and play with Lisa because we were the same age up at the mansion every now and then. And then we moved to Walnut Grove, and that's where I spent most of my life living there, right across the street from St. Dominic's, where I went to school. And the Hebrew Academy around the corner, went to school there. So this East Memphis area, since the 70s, the mid-late 70s, is really what I've always known and recognized as home. And during holiday times back in those years, there was, when it was Christmas time, it was also Hanukkah time. So you had every house with the Christmas lights. You had, like, every other house that had the Hanukkah lights up on it. And, it was like a community thing. It was the festive season. It wasn't indigenous to one group or what have you. Memphis was really united at that time. It was because we're fresh coming out of, the civil rights movement, the murder of Dr. King. There was really a unity going on. And housing, I remember these housing prices that we see now are fantastic compared to when you were growing up. I remember my mother put a bid in on the Galloway house back in, like, 1982, right, behind the zoo. And this is still, it's 82, and all that acreage that came with it, that since then has been subdivided and other McMansions have been put up. And I just remember her saying, anybody that would pay $250,000 for a house in Memphis is out of their mind.
Wow.
Now today it'd be like with the house they subdivided, like $4 million. But that's how long I've been here, and that's what I've seen. But Memphis was an ideal city to grow up in, and it still is, and can get back to those levels. I'm very confident.
So what would it take?
Well, in a lot of ways, it would just be going back to do a lot of things that we did correctly in the past.
Okay, if you could list those, what would that list look like?
Well, first of all, we did invest in the arts. Like when you look at Theater Memphis, when it was built up there, like the 70s was a big growth period. You had like two administrations, I'm not going to politicize it too much, but two administrations that were like the biggest spending ones, and those were also like the two periods that Memphis real estate and business coming into town with the jobs were at their zenith. So if you're fishing for sharks, you got to throw chum in the water. And there has to be a reason to come here. So we can go and rebuild and redevelop places here all the time and build all this housing, and there's a great crosstown and downtown developments going on, but there have to be the jobs. I know that there's a lot of jobs that are quote unquote available out there, but there's still not a lot of jobs available that can afford $1,700 a month apartments. So, you got to get back to business here. We got to do this with vocational programs because, we gave away our school system. So it's all county government. So the city, when people talk about education, we really don't have a dog in that race. So back when we had the school board and Memphians could decide on education here in Memphis and what their choices and opportunities they wanted for their children, we don't have that same voice now. But vocational programs, that is something that we can do something about. And there are programs that are available right now, and I'm going to work, that's one of the reasons why we haven't mentioned that I'm running for city council.
We have not.
I'm running for Super District 9, Position 2, which is basically represents half of the city, mostly everything like east of Midtown, going all the way up north into Raleigh, and bordering basically Winchester up north of that. It's a.
I looked it up last night.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know.
It's big.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Well, there's two. There's Super District 8 Super District 9. It kind of cuts the city in half, east to west, and there's 3 positions in one in the 8 and 3 positions in the 9, and then.
What does seat 2 mean?
So there are 3 positions because it's so big. So in one, you need to have 3 people to represent that large super district.
Okay.
So there's 1, 2, and 3 positions. They still represent the same constituents.
Okay.
And ultimately, someone elected to city council should be representing all Memphians and all of their interests, because we're all paying property taxes, and we're all, which is something that I'm for no higher property taxes. We got plenty of revenues coming in. It's about how we appropriate those funds. That's what's important.
So we all experienced about, 18 months ago, a hike in our property taxes. Let's talk about that. Why such, I know that changed the way a lot of people lived when those property taxes went up the amount that they did. Why did that happen? Where is that money appropriated? And what can we do going forward?
Well, there was time that, big business in Memphis in the early 21st century was having some backlash. There were companies that were moving out of town. The jobs were going down, and so business in Memphis had to stimulate things, and the Chamber of Commerce got involved. And our Memphis businesses and the Chamber of Commerce are wonderful entities and organizations. They do a lot of great things. This current administration and city council has focused primarily on that. So a lot of the funds appropriated from our property taxes have gone to those projects about, stimulate and develop business here. Now, big business and the chamber are well represented on city council. They have many seats. That is those council persons' primary interest. So I'm saying we need to go back and focus on the average Memphian. We need to focus on infrastructure. It's a nonpartisan seat, but somehow it's gotten into a left-right thing up there. And, at the end of the day, a Republican can't fill a pothole any better than a Democrat can.
That's right.
And so I'm looking at, potholes, vocational programs, getting tourism back here, getting our flight levels back at the airport. You got to have people coming in here to spend money to generate the businesses and the infrastructure, and we just got to get back to that. So once again, we used to have like 3,000 operations a day out at the airport. Now we got a little over 300. So,
that's a big difference.
Sure. I mean, that's not including the FedEx aspect
shipping
of it. Right.
Correct.
But the number of flights, I mean, it used to be, like 6 years ago when Delta got kind of pushed out, there were 1,000 Memphians using Delta alone for business travel every day. Today, there's still 1,000 Memphians using Delta every day for flights. The difference is it's twice as expensive and 3 times as long to get there. So Memphis isn't on the way to anything anymore, and that's why a lot of session players in the music industry's had a downgrade here recently, because it used to be you'd have session players come in from Nashville, and they'd be getting all these direct flights to New York and L.A. and Miami, but the hallowed flight to Amsterdam. And for musicians to us, that's like Omaha Beach, because once you get into Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, you can go anywhere in Europe for like $100 round trip. So we could go to all these festivals, and so these session players would come from Nashville and Jackson, Mississippi, and all around, and they would get here a couple of days early, and they'd play a gig, or they'd do some session work, and then they go off on tour in Europe, and then they come back, and they stay a couple of days over and do a gig and do some session work. So there was a lot of activity going on here as a result of that. And I remember I saw my friend Ken Neal that, owns the Memphis Flyer and magazine and what have you, and he was, so what do you think is going on with all this? And I said, I'll tell you what, you just go look at this next Tuesday, look at the lineup at the venues, who's playing at Memphis clubs or music venues, and get a copy of your Memphis Flyer 10 years ago on a Tuesday and look at the lineup and see who the names are. They're going to be much bigger. So,
if there's a magic pill to that, what is it?
Well, we got to get people routed back through Memphis. I mean, it's got to be a reason to be here. There's got to be incentives in business. You know, I mean, we have these great facilities here. You know, Memphis doesn't need another recording studio, but what we need to do is, and when I'm on city council, I'm going to see how we can direct incentives to our local studios like Ardent and Royal and Cotton Row, and get people from the outside coming back in to use our great session players and engineers and producers and talent that we have here in town. Put us on the map.
Put us back on the map. Make sure that you stay tuned to KWAM 990. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more Home Buying and Selling with Cindy Ward on KWAM The Voice.
CBS Money Watch.
Tennessee Senator Bob Corker introduced a bipartisan bill that would allow Congress to rein in the president's ability to enact tariffs. The bill would require congressional approval when the president orders trade restrictions in certain situations. Meantime, German automaker Daimler has unveiled an all-electric truck. The Freightliner E-Cascadia is an 18-wheeler with a 250-mile range. Daimler's e-truck is expected to go into production in 2021. And KFC is going vegetarian, creating a plant-based version of its fried chicken for the United Kingdom. And that's your CBS Money Watch report. For more, head to cbsmoneywatch.com. At the New York Stock Exchange, I'm Diane King Hall.
To prevent muscle cramps in your legs and feet, use TheraWorks Relief. This fast-acting foam is clinically proven to relieve leg and foot cramps. Get TheraWorks Relief today at select Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid pharmacies or TheraWorksRelief.com. Ask your pharmacist for a TheraWorks Relief.
Memphis area residential real estate is more confusing than ever. Rumors are everywhere. Home prices are exploding. There's no inventory to choose from. Buyer beware, it's a seller's market. There's some truth to just about everything, but most of it is based on inaccurate information, assumptions, and general confusion. Help is on the way. Answers are coming. Cindy Ward, Memphis team leader for Keller Williams Realty, one of the nation's top real estate companies, will bring the facts of today's residential real estate home to you on her new radio show. Cindy and her special guests will answer your questions, explain the facts of the Memphis area housing market, and talk with other top professionals in the real estate business. Learn why Cindy tells all her customers buying or selling, if you don't use a realtor, you're probably going to lose money. Listen every Thursday at home, at work, or in the car to Home Buying and Selling with Cindy at Keller Williams, and watch her on Facebook Live.
And now back to Home Buying and Selling with Cindy Ward on KWAM The Voice.
Thank you so much for staying with us at KWAM 990. This is Cindy Ward. I'm here with Charley Burch today. We are discussing real estate in Memphis and how Memphis used to be and what we can do today to make it greater than it is now and great again like it was back then. Charley, talk more about your running for City Council, Super District 9, Seat 2. Mm-hmm. When is this election?
August 2nd. So it's coming straight up. There was a council member, Philip Spinoza, that had stepped down recently to take a job over at the Chamber of Commerce. So it can't be on City Council and with the Chamber of Commerce at the same time. It's a conflict of interest because the Chamber petitioned City Council for funding for projects, development projects in Memphis, and you can't be the person voting on where the money is going over to, where you also get a salary from.
That makes total sense. So I'm looking at your platform at voteburch.com. That's VOTEBURCH.com. And your platform, number one, attract and keep residents in Memphis. Hello, thank you. Yes, we have to attract them, and we definitely want to keep them.
If we're building all this stuff, this property for them, residential stuff, we got to fill them up.
We've got, yes, of course, we've got low inventory now, and we've got a lot of permits that will be, again, I know there's a halt on the permits right now, and they'll be starting up again. So, number two, sustain firefighters, police, and city worker health care plans and pensions.
Yes, I mean, that's has always been a big thing with me. I'm a member of the American Federal Employees Union Association, and I've always been a pro-labor guy. I mean, and back in '77, we had a firefighter strike here, and it was reflective of city employees, but it was mostly with the firefighters. And they came to an agreement that was put into the charter, into law, that says basically if you get shot at or almost blown up for 25 years and make it, we're going to pay you a pension, and 70-something% of your healthcare premiums for you and your family for life. So a lot of good men and women join the firefighters and the police and the first responders as a result of that. And Memphis was a safer and better place as a result of it. Then a new mentality came in, in the 21st century that, we don't need to pay health care benefits. We need to have the employees invest in a health care investment plan, and 401ks and things of that nature. And that just wasn't the deal.
Right.
And so this promise was made, and it's been an active law and protocol ever since then until recently. So I am for reinstating that and sustaining what they already have. It's like, in my opinion, it just shouldn't have been something that could have been repealed.
Sure. And I think that Mayor Strickland is working on righting that ship now.
I've heard such. It's just, like I said, one of the seats this seat that I'm running for, it has been the position of that seat.
Okay.
Not to guarantee their benefits.
So this is a big one.
So this is planting a flag for labor and just doing the right thing. We got to take care of our first responders, and they're going to stay here and protect us. That way we won't just be having a pool of police officers that really want to be in charge and really want to carry a gun.
Right. There you go. Develop and maintain a sensible and balanced city budget.
Absolutely. I mean, that's working. Once again, this is a nonpartisan seat. So when elected, I'm going to work with everybody on that body. But a fair and balanced budget, something that when we are doing street repairs, that is taken an equal or even greater priority than, say, funding a big business here that's already established and making a lot of money and doesn't need the same assistance as it did in the past when it was just getting started. That we go back to dealing with the common property tax paying citizen, that we take care of their needs. Get the trash picked up. When we had the city service, that's why when you go into privatizing sanitation, they may not have the fleet of trucks. I'm just being hypothetical here, but they may not have the same fleet of trucks that the city of Memphis does. So when one of their trucks breaks down, it can be a week or 2 weeks before your trash gets picked up until they can get that route back online with the repaired vehicles, whereby the city of Memphis has tons of them to pull from. And, of course, nothing for nothing, no matter what side someone takes on this issue, if there's one city in the world where we need to take care of and respect our sanitation workers, it's Memphis.
I agree with that. I think we all heard that one.
That's like a global position. You know what I mean? It's not like a local issue.
Yeah, that was not a secret. Okay, improve access to affordable public transportation.
Yes. I mean, we need to have bus routes that get everybody to their job.
You ever ridden them out of bus?
I have.
Have you?
And I remember back in the 70s, once again, when there was this golden age of Memphis, and from my experience and point of view, Walnut Grove and Yates, over there on the corner, there was this attorney, Mr. Brackstone, and he used to come out there and go to his office from 100 North Main Building, and he right there on that corner of Yates and Walnut Grove, he'd get on the bus every day.
Really?
Very successful attorney, and used the bus, and it took him straight to his office. And so I want to see that come back, because I'm not experiencing people that are, it doesn't mean that you have to be in an impoverished or working class neighborhood that you're resolute to the
public transportation,
bus, right? There's like some kind of negative stigma on it, because if you go to Manhattan, everybody uses the bus. Billionaires ride the bus.
Sure.
And that's because the buses are cost effective and have timely routes and provide a service.
And they shrink our footprint.
Yeah, absolutely. The carbon footprint. When people started doing recycling, and they had the little tiny beige bins, and you take that out to the corner. Well, it's not, I'm all about the environment. I'm all about recycling. But when you have that little, 5-gallon bin that has the little plastic bottles in it, the carbon footprint of the diesel truck that comes to pick it up is like 5,000 times worse for the environment than those little 30 bottles of water that you are recycling.
Have never had that thought. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So now if we had converted these trucks to, hydrogen, electric or what have you, there's a diesel engine that charges the electric cells. Yeah, that works. Like these trains that go by all the time, the diesel doesn't drive the train. The trains are driven by electricity,
yes,
by batteries, but the diesels charge and are the generators for the electric cells. Right. And that's how they're still, very cost effective. And, this is still the top 2 hubs of train transportation in the country as a result. And that's a good thing.
That is a very good thing. Okay, develop and promote Memphis music, arts, tourism, and attraction. I think we know why that's very important.
Right. Well, I mean, you just look at, once again, look at what we were doing in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even 90s here in Memphis. Memphis was reinvesting in its greatest cultural art form and export. And this has a lot to do with education, too. I mean, they did study like 15 years ago that in the American Psychological Review that children that learned how to sight read in grade school, sight read music, had 11% higher achievement test scores and IQ scores. So it's math. So if you're 4 or 5, 6 years old taking the Suzuki method, you are learning fractions, quarter notes, half notes,
yes,
whole notes, years before they get to fractions
right
in your school. So, I mean, you're just going to have a jump on it. Just don't think of it as like a tree-hugging hippie liberal thing, like, oh, let's get behind the arts and everything. No, this is about empowering the minds of the youth and an appreciation of the past. And we're seeing that now in the songwriting and the arrangements. I mean, these songs today are just, there's not a lot new and developmental about it. It's not evolving and progressing. They're just going back and following algorithms about what makes a hit song and regurgitating it.
It's very depressing at times.
It is, but we can do something about that.
Yes, we can. Restore traffic from the Memphis airport to previous levels. Now, tell me about that. I'm not certain about that.
Yeah, so we were mentioning earlier on the show, years ago, about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, they were renegotiating the contract with the city of Memphis and Delta, who had just, merged up with Northwest and what have you, and there were all these great direct flights all over. And with the other airlines, as a result, they could guarantee direct flights too because there was all this traffic going through to and from. And Memphis has I think it's like the second highest landing fees in the country. And so Delta goes up to them basically and says, could you, now that we're running B and C concourse, and we've got all these, employees that live and reside here, that pay property taxes here, by the way. If you could lower the rates, we can keep it all here because Delta hadn't been profitable for 4 decades.
Wow.
And, but still wanted to remain here. But if you could lower the landing fees a little bit, we'll stay. Well, not only were the landing fees not lowered, or even kept the same, they were raised even higher. And they had to go. So there were 1,000 people that used Delta, business people, Memphians, that used Delta for Business every day. And to date, now with them not having a hub here any longer, there's still 1,000 Memphians using it every day for business. The difference is it's twice as expensive and 3 times as long to get there. Mostly you got to connect everything out of Atlanta or Charlotte or, there's all these, but it's everything on a connect and run. And I have a son that lives in Miami, and there is American has this flight that goes out at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's $700, and it's on a little RJ, but it is direct. But then I got to drive up to North Miami Beach, and it's and these things are basically saying, we're talking about tourism and getting the flight levels back up. Memphis is now a destination. It's not on the way to anywhere any longer. So people were coming from Nashville, were coming from Jackson. They're all piling in here to get somewhere direct. That was the whole point of them schlepping 2.5 hours driving, was because they would get a good deal on the ticket,
Right.
cost effective, and they get somewhere direct, because whether it's business or vacation time is money. You know, you don't want to spend a whole day traveling to and from when you only have like one extra day on your vacation to actually do something.
Sure.
So that's going to stimulate a lot of things here in Memphis, and it's definitely going to place people in the houses here and in the real estate that we're selling now, that the values are going up. And it's, as you mentioned earlier, a seller's market. We're going to have a larger pool of owners that are like, you know, they're owner operators of it, instead of just investors from the outside coming in that are just looking for a return on their investment.
So we do have a plethora of investors right now from out of state, from out of the country.
Out of the country.
Yes, and they are coming in, they're buying these houses because we do have a great price point to our houses. Even though prices are up right now, they're still a lot less expensive than other places in the country.
Yeah, but you know,
and
you have some tripwires there.
And yes, they're not owner occupied. These investors rarely see the homes. I mean,
Sight unseen.
Sight unseen. Buy 2 or 3 package deals and move on. So that takes away a lot of our community because we don't have the owner occupied homes.
Right, and that's where, you know, being a representative on city council, where I'm going to be able to make a difference. I think that the city council has been turned over to basically big business and the chamber and what have you, as far as direction, because the citizens just don't feel that they're a part of it any longer. You know, I'll see them when they go down to City Hall. Used to be, let's say 10, 15, 20 years ago, any regular meeting, like, there's a reason why that room is so big and there's so many seats, because it needed to be.
Sure.
It wasn't just this ostentatious power of government thing.
It was a coming together of the community.
Yeah, and people would just show up and get dressed up like they're going to church on Sunday and go listen to what was going on with their city. I want to bring that back.
I would definitely love to be a part of that, too. Hey, guys, stay with us. We are going to break for just a few minutes.
We'll be right back with more home buying and selling with Cindy Ward on KWAM The Voice.
Now, here's Mid-South weather from News Channel 3's Severe Weather Center. Brought to you by the Crescent Club, hosting the people and ideas that moved Memphis forward for nearly 30 years. Poplar and I-240. Call for a free tour at 901-684-1010.
Our Code Orange health alert for elevated ozone will continue today. Mostly sunny with highs in the lower 90s and light southeasterly winds. Low 70s tonight, but low 90s heading into the weekend with minimal rain chances. Golf season's upon us. If you haven't been to Miramichi lately, you're missing out. It's a world-class public access golfing experience located in the Woodstock community, just minutes from downtown Memphis. I'm News Channel 3's Todd Demers on The Voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990.
Keller Williams, the world's largest real estate franchise by agent count, announces its #1 in units and sales volume in the U.S. in Q4 17. The franchise broke previous agent production, owner profit, and profit share records set in Q4 16. Keller Williams has more than 930 offices and 177,000 associates. The franchise is #1 in units and sales volume in the U.S. and most transactions and highest dollar volume of all real estate companies in the world. In 2017, Training Magazine named Keller Williams the #1 training organization across all industries in the world. Since 1983, Keller Williams has grown exponentially and continues to cultivate an agent-centric, education-based, technology-driven culture that rewards agents as stakeholders. The company also provides specialized agents in luxury homes, commercial and farm and ranch properties. If you're wanting to begin your career as a professional realtor, or if you're already in the business and looking for a new home, contact Cindy Ward at Keller Williams today, 901-261-7900.
And now back to home buying and selling with Cindy Ward on KWAM The Voice.
Thank you so much for coming back. I'm Cindy Ward. I'm here with Charley Burch today. Charley, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that? Would they email you or call you?
You call me.
Okay,
you know,
what's your number?
That's a whole big 901-335-3152.
Give Charley a call. Also, make certain that you visit VoteBurch.com. That's VOTEBURCH.com. I'm looking at this website right now, and this is a phenomenal website. It's very interesting, Charlie. There's no question to me what your platform is. We only have a couple minutes remaining, and I would like to hear you talk about number 8 on your platform. That's preserve and improve our library, landmarks, and park services.
Certainly. Knowledge is power. The older I get, I try to think as little as possible and know as much as I can, because most of the mistakes I've ever made in my life were followed by the phrase, well, I thought.
Oh, great point.
So don't tell me what you think, tell me what you know. The library is a great place for that. And the programs that they have, not just the books that are in there or what's left of books these days,
Sure.
But the computer services. They have a sound recording studio at the Hooks Library where you can book time. Yeah, and it's just free to the public.
That is awesome.
But it's got to be used, and there have to be mentors there, people that
Someone to
have
show you
actually, put out a radio rotated record before in their life, and not,
right.
just saying that they're enthusiasts. So, yes, and our parks, we have all these, like, if you're a golfer, we have, like, great public golfing facilities. But, they need to be maintained. They need to keep those neighborhoods vibrant. You can shut down some of these public services, and the real estate and the neighborhood can go downwards.
Yes.
Because they're not these safety issues. Wherever you have parks and you have people out barbecuing in the park and kids playing in the playground, that's just a little less crime welcoming.
And I believe that goes hand in hand with our owner-occupant
Absolutely. Owner-occupied homes, owner-occupied businesses.
Yes.
When you have that, when you have the outside investors, they're looking at the bottom line. They're looking at ROI, return on investment. And we need to have a lot of more Memphis pride ownership, and that way it's going to better everything.
Okay, I look forward to hearing more from you. This has been very enlightening to me today. I have learned so much from you. One thing that I adore about you, Charley Burch, is your passion for Memphis. We share that. We have that in common. This is our home. This is where we raise our families. This is where we work, we play, we eat, we pray. And I'm looking forward to a better and new improved Memphis as well. This is a city that we love, and I love the fact that you're running for city council. You definitely have my vote.
Well, thank you very much. And like I said, I'm about being a voice of the people, a conduit of their voice. Anybody wants to contact me with an issue, even if I disagree with what the majority of my constituents want, I am going to vote their voice and their wants, because their voice is more important than mine, or their opinion is more important than mine, provided that it's not illegal or adverse to Memphians as a whole.
Sure, that's strong. That's very strong. Once again, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, they would call you at
901-335-3152. If you lose that number, forget it. Just Google Charley Burch, and it'll all pop up. I'm a very open book. I'm here for people. I'm here to be a part of something larger than myself. I'm here for labor. I'm here for our schools. I'm here for our faith community. I'm here for Memphians as a whole. Have no private interest or agendas behind me. I just want to make Memphis better again.
How refreshing and exciting. Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in today to Home Buying and Selling with Cindy Ward. We'll see you next week.